Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast Prerak Stories that Inspire. Today, we have with us Ms. Satinder Walia, a prominent child psychologist, founder Kidspiration, contributing widely towards neurodiversity and inclusivity in educational setup. Satinder, we know you as a child psychologist and a trailblazer of your field. Tell us something about your family, your education, your journey.
I'm Satinder, and I won't say I'm a trailblazer. I do have some mentors who have already started this, and I attribute a lot of my work following some of the people both in India and US. I grew up in a very middle class family. My grandparents came from Pakistan after partition, and grew up hearing a lot of stories about partition and how hard their life was to settle up after partition in India. So after that, my father always wanted me to be a medical doctor. And I, for some reason, wasn't very keen on becoming a medical doctor. Although, as a kid, that seemed the most appropriate profession. Was good in studies, always been a monitor, always been a person who like to get good grades. As life moved on, from the very middle school, I just started realizing that I have a lot of passion to work with children. And at that point, I didn't have understanding of neurodiversity, but I saw some children, they were really, really nice, but they were not doing well in academics. And I do have particular one or two kids in my mind to date. I am not in touch with them, but I just felt that the teachers used to be very, very rude and mean to them. And corporal punishment at that time was still prevalent. So those things used to really bother me. So if I look back, I think from the middle school onwards, I started thinking that I wanted to work with children, but I wanted to become a psychologist. So after my 12th, I gave my medical exam, but I was not very keen on it. I pursued psychology. And once I pursued psychology, I did my master's and I started my internship. Was either in a psychiatric unit, and I happened to work at Gangaram Hospital where there was a full-fledged development clinic. So I wanted to become a psychometrist. Again, at that point, I had no idea what it was. But then I used to see that we used to administer intelligence tests over there and work with children. And that kind of fascinated me. So after I finished my master's, I took up a job in the development clinic, worked at various places. And that's how I built my career as a psychologist. Did my master's in clinical psychology. But then after working in India, I realized that there is not much I know about how to intervene and work with children. So intervention was something, the knowledge I thought I was missing. And that's how in the same duration I got married also. And marriage was also not very kind of accepted by my parents because it was our choice marriage and intercaste marriage. So life moved on. We both started our lives together, and then I went to US, got trained as a school psychologist, and that's how my journey started. And then finally, I decided to come back to India because back of my mind, it was always there that I want to go back and work in India. But coming back to India, it was another journey because it looked very nice when you are out there and you have those resources available. And you think that, the patriotism was very on top of me. But when you come back and then you're stripped of all the support you have and all the resources one has, it took me now almost 15 years that I feel that I am back on a track and doing exactly what I wanted to do. So this had been my journey in a very nutshell.
Nice. So you went to US to do your masters. There so with masters you became a school psychologist as well, right? Did you do any practice there, or you came back and you started your practice in India as a psychologist?
I used to work in India. I already had a master's degree. Psychology as a career, it has progressed. In last 10-15 years, there had been a lot of guidelines. But when I went to college 25 years back, guidelines were very minimal in nature. And you may have seen last 15 years, the psychologist word is relatively better heard. Mental health is still a mainstream now theme. We still are not anywhere close to where it should be, but it has still become a mainstream kind of a conversation and a profession. But when I picked up, it wasn't at so much, prevalence of a
Yes,
career.
correct.
So after doing my masters in India, I worked, and then because I wanted to learn how to work with children, and again inclusion was in my mind but didn't know what inclusion looked like. So when I did my masters in US, I did in school psychology. So school psychology was more like how to work with children and how to identify children with neurodiversity and how to work with them. So after I finished my course, yes, I worked in a school systems. Over there, as a school psychologist, you get hired by a school district. Now, education in India and US are very different. In US, it is a free education, it's a public education, and everybody is mandated to go to school. So over there, when a district hires you, then they don't only provide you education, teachers, but if there are any delays, that also is a state responsibility. So I was hired by the state, public school system. So I worked over there as a school psychologist. Now, when I came back to India, working as a school psychologist was not the best option because it would have restricted my domain of work which I used to do. So over here, because I had already worked in a hospital setting, so I did started my work back in a hospital setting, but being a school psychologist, getting associated with schools was also something which I did. So that's how I started my own initiative. Reason being is that if I work only with one school, then it doesn't justify the scope of work I could do.
Right. So, Satinder, you rightly mentioned that, the word psychologist is not taken very nicely. And, when you look back 20 years back, it was unheard of, right? Specifically, when you talk about the adult psychology and you talk about the kid psychology, it's totally different, right? When the adult psychology is not very well accepted, then it's very far away, that a child psychologist would be accepted. Or that my child has any problem 20-25 years back. Now, when you went to US, the family setup and the educational setup in US is entirely different than it was in India 20 years back, right? So when you studied there and the kind of experience you got in there, which would be a little more open as compared to once you came back to India. So how was your experience? There must be a shift, US versus India. What was the shift, which you experienced, and how gradually over the years you think that Indian families have opened up?
Really touched upon a lot of aspects over here. When going to USC, as I said, it's a state mandated. It's a law. Inclusion is a law. It is not something which I'm doing out of my good heart or I'm doing it because I want to do it. It's a law. So when I came back to India, and here most of our schools are private schools, and the word inclusion is a fancy word. Everybody says that, but when it comes to the real meeting the needs of a child, and that to every child, one, I think there is a limited scope of knowledge here. Secondly, even if there is a good intention, the how to do it, that knowledge is also missing. I think two ways of looking at it. In US also, there used to be parents who would be in denial. So the stages of anybody who has a child with any kind of a challenge is nearly the same. That is not a different. I think human behavior is universal. Child development is universal. The difference is between the resources available and over there the consultants available. So here also I see, thanks to internet, even people from a small town, they Google it, and if they find there are delays in children, they do reach out to you. And there could be some very affluent family, but still would stay in a denial. So I see it is not a very basic umbrella, I would say. World has really changed. I also see from adult psychology, I think the child psychology, even parents reach out because they need help how to parent a child. So I am seeing more and more open-mindedness to reach out, to find out the ways how to support children. So that is one part. Secondly, you see the families are becoming nuclear units. So earlier, if a child with disability would be, not come in a mainstream house or the families or stuff, but now you do see children with different needs coming in the mainstream. So I personally think from parents' side, things have evolved quite a bit. Where I still see a struggle is from the school's end. They are very handful school which will accept. I find the teachers' initiative, other than curriculum learning, how to build a child as a whole, that part is really, really missing. So I think there is a lot of difference in the approach. And again, over there, you work with the school district, and here you are an outside body. So very less schools will have a special needs department or a inclusive education, whatever need is acceptable. So it's a two different world altogether. It was a big learning. In fact, I would be very honest, first 10 years of since the time I'm back, I kept looking what could be the option that I should go back. I should, like I made a mistake. I regret it because the kind of things were in my mind were not feasible how to do that. So I had to unlearn a lot of things and then relearn to fit in back because of the resources, I would say, because of the over there the testing kits are easily available, it costs you money, and the whole mindset is very different. And then there are a lot of guidelines which we might talk as we move on, that which also kind of sometimes open doors, sometimes hinders a lot of work as well.
And since you mentioned about schools, I would like to ask you from a school perspective. You're working with a lot of schools, right? Tell us something about your partnership, yours, school, as well as parents, how you're working together, and how's it going there?
So I think I got lucky in the sense that my first school was Heritage School. I think I learned how to write a comprehensive report in US, and wherever my reports went, I got connected many schools in the process. So I have worked with many schools, big names, Heritage, Shivnadar I worked very closely with. I was also a assessor for British School in between, and I've been doing a lot of workshop for many schools. The journey with the schools is that what I just said I'm contradicting now, that some schools are inclusive, where I felt recently I actually did a lot of training for the DAV teachers all over the country. So I personally felt that teachers, because they are again and again trained and they are mandated to do the training, they are still trying to be and able to identify and support and give the feedback. But the theme which comes back in all the workshops is that parents are in denial, or they don't want
Correct.
to
Yeah.
do anything. So this is where I feel, and this is where now my work is mostly, that I want to set up more and more trainings for the parents actually, because I think what happens is that teachers, as a part of mandated training, are still getting a knowledge of child development, how to work with children, and what are the typical milestones. But parents to that extent are not. So simple things like not to initiate screen during early years, it can cause a disaster, language delays in children, how to not use negative or hostility in a parenting. I'm surprised that we still live in a world where corporal punishment is not considered as it's considered it's okay. So those kind of a things which I think which need to come. So school, the child is a collaboration between school and parents. So it cannot be only school's responsibility, and it cannot be only parents' responsibility.
Right.
So I think until and unless that collaboration becomes much more stringent and much more in a process where they feel that we need each other, it may not be a work which we need to establish.
Right. So, in fact, you mentioned that teachers get a lot of training every year, right? And they see a lot of students in their class, right? So, it's a lot of exposure they are getting. So, it's easy for them to identify a child with special needs. But when it comes to parents, a communication from, to the parents that, this is something we should be looking at, it becomes a very soft and a touchy point, right? And that's the point wherein I think an external party has to come in to communicate, in a right tone, in a right manner, so that parents understand, because parents are much more emotional. They don't understand what kind of challenges the kid might be facing and what they can do, to cope up, to help cope up the child. So I think, do you also face such kind of challenges in communicating the right messaging to the parents, that this is what you should be looking at, and see it from a distance, right? Don't see it as like your own extension, but see it from a distance, that how it's looking.
So absolutely, you're again, absolutely, this is the way it happens. the whole now, the when I go for trainings, what I realize is I don't have to talk about what are the delays and disabilities. The idea is, the message which is again and again reiterated in the trainings to the teachers is, this is for your own knowledge. You, as a stakeholder, are not a diagnostician. So these are the symptoms which you see, then maybe a team in your school or a professional support to look into it further should be explored. But don't just sit, like, as a society now, I see we commonly use word ADHD hai, बहुत ही डिप्रेस हो गया है, बहुत एंजाइटी हो रही है. I don't see that we are finding the difference between a discipline and anxiety. A child not going to school, refusing to go to school, and I'm not able to motivate, is not only an anxiety issue, it is also an issue of not being able to put right boundaries at what we need to establish. So teachers sometimes, what they start doing is, the way they tell it to the parents may not be the most appropriate manner. So empathy is the word which has been, we need to work on. Until and unless adults will show empathy to each other, I think kids are not going to kind of imitate that.
Right.
So it starts from the teacher, and I always tell them that your job is to let the parent know, because you are seeing so many students in the classroom, but parents are only raising maybe 1 or 2 children.
Right.
And if it is a first child, it is very difficult for them to understand what would be the typical or the non-typical way.
Right.
So the idea should be to convey them, these are the challenges we are facing, but not try to fix it immediately, because everybody will go through the certain phase of their own. Even when parents come to us in a clinical setup, it takes a lot of effort for you to accept and go. And that's what parents commonly reiterate.
Right.
That that for us it was a big deal that we are taking a child to a child psychologist. Feel that if you will not deliver and you will not build their trust from there, that's where it is going to kind of end the relationship. However, I also feel, because I'm a professional, and you are invested with every child, but end of the day, it's part of your job. Even if you are invested, there are many things which are not going to be, because if I see maybe 6-10 kids in a day, or I may have had a good intention with everybody, but the kind of calls parents will reach out to, every child will require certain things. So expecting that only messages through the WhatsApp can be given, or only teachers can support their children, and I am not being partner to that, that is where I think we still need to work on. So again, it comes to the partnership, and for teachers not to diagnose the children, but do bring to the notice of the parents, because neither I want parents, teachers to completely say that theek ho jayega bade hoke, let's wait and watch. If we are seeing red flags, in today's world, we say early intervention is the key. The sooner you find out, better interventions you can do. So I think I went.
No. So absolutely, I think there's a partnership between the schools, parents and families,
Yes.
and an external advisor like yourself, which is very critical. And also because there is undue pressure also these days, both on the parents as well as the kids, on all fronts. I've seen a lot of parents putting their kids in a lot of classes. I am still trying to figure out it's a good thing or a bad thing. But yes, too much of pressure, otherwise as well, outside of school, inside school. So we need a lot of talk on this, as well as with the parents, with their families, to make them understand, and to make myself also understand, because I'm also a parent, and that it's normal, it's okay.
See, you've again touched a very important aspect. We parents in India, we raise kids with certain expectations, much more than other people in the world. So the whole research shows that academic achievement is highly prioritized in India. So after India, it's the China which also prioritize education a lot. Many times what I feel is that school grades have become such a hallmark of a child's progress that we lose the learning journey. We lose how to kind of, build maybe some other skills along the way. And also, this whole idea of putting children back to back classes and having a very structured environment is taking away the time or learning to be creative. Early years, I think it should all be play. I am a big fan of play schools because I think it's a good opportunity for children to be with other children. But expecting 2 years and 3 years old to sit on a bench only and do start writing at a 3-year-old, I think those expectations are kind of not age appropriate. They are set up by some amount of parents, and if 90% is achieving that and if 10% is not, then you start to feeling that you and your child is losing out.
Right.
So I think the understanding of what is appropriate for children, 3-year-old will not sit at one place and 14-year-old will not sit with you. 3-year-old is supposed to kind of cling to their parents. So at that age, parents come and they feel that I don't have a life anymore. My child is all the time, they are wanting to be with me and I don't want the child. So I sometimes feel that parents maybe need to do a homework before they have a kid, and if not, then at least once a kid is born, we need to be aware what are the milestones. Parenting has to be adjusted as per the milestone of a child, temperament of the child, and the needs of the child. So I cannot be overindulgent, but at the same time I cannot be negligent also. Positive parenting is something which I finished my PhD on, and I really believe in that, teaching children responsibilities, at the same time boundaries. I cannot let my child run the house because end of the day, we need to make them responsible and take responsibility of their actions. Sending children to a lot of classes, if that is a question, I'm not a big believer of that. I think teaching them skills should be the criteria, but winning all the sports activities or learning the music to become a showcase your talent is becoming more and more prominent, which I personally think is putting pressure on children.
So let's talk about your new venture. Or it been some time you started off with Kidspiration. Tell us something about what motivated you and what you do there.
So, as I told you, when I came back to India, I couldn't find a exactly job which will suffice my roles. So that's where Kidspiration, it was the name of a software which was the writing tool, and I really liked the name. So that's how I had thought that if I'll start something of mine, it will be Kidspiration. And that's how 15 years back it just started. And I started with myself and then slowly, gradually started building a team. And right now I have 6 psychologists with me who work with me and support me in Kidspiration. It started with the initiative to support children. When I say support children, psychometry is main the what I am trained in, and I'm very passionate about it. By psychometry, I don't mean only testing children for disability, but doing aptitude testing, understanding what is the profile of the child. I believe that if we work towards the strengths of a child, then we can make the best out of them. And I am not focusing on only the limitations they have. For example, I might be very creative in writing, but I may not be very successful in math.
Right.
So math, to some extent, I will practice, but then I will also hone my writing skills.
Understood.
So I want to focus more on the strengths of the child rather than the limitations. So that's one thing which my whole team, our focus is to look at the strength and the challenge the children are facing. Again, if I pick my career, if I pick my subject choices based on the strengths, I would be set up for more success rather than for a failure. Mm-hmm. So if I'm not a math person, maybe engineering is not a career for me. If my language skills are good, maybe lawyer is a good career for me.
Right.
So these are broadly examples. So we at Kidspiration look at the profile of children. Along with that, the idea is to do child advocacy. So when I talk to parents, I do get this a lot from the parents, is that you always talk from the parents' perspective. Mm-hmm. According to you, children are always correct. And I really believe in it. I really think that kids are right. It is our duty to provide support. In fact, I want to share that last week only I met a parent. I saw them few months back and they disagreed with my suggestions, and we had a lot of argument, and I have my way of working. So they went and they consulted with a lot of people, and then they again came back to me last week. So I had not remembered. Then I said, like, okay, we met, what was. So it took me some time to remember what the scenario was. And they said, we talked to many people and they said, which psychologist you've gone to? This is not going to work. This is wrong. So I said, but here you are, you're back here, because none of those strategies work. So there's a difference between what I read and what is a theory. But there is a difference between providing a very one-to-one support to children.
Right.
Like, child's personality can be different. Their temperament can be different. If a child with a high intelligence and being stubborn, it's part of who they are. So, tailoring my way of handling that child is going to make a lot of difference. It is not going to make that head-to-head kind of a blockhead where we are just fighting with each other and considering continually having conflicts. So that is what Kidspiration is about. It's a whole child advocacy, whether it is to support them, what interventions can be done at home, at a parent's end, or what can be done at the school's end, what children can be done. As I said, that sometimes it is not an anxiety issue. It could be a discipline issue. If I also become very passive in my parenting, and if I just say that my child now rules, and I am scared of putting some rules together, so that also is going to backfire us. So when it comes to child advocacy, it is about well-being of a child. At the same time, working towards their own strengths and compensating for their weaknesses. It's Kidspiration all about.
Understood. So at Kidspiration, is there a minimum age wherein you will start working with a child, or like it's because you mentioned that you look at what are the strengths of the child and where it is leading, right? It could be good in maths, and then it could become an engineer, or those qualities, they come out. But then do you also look at the EQ side of a child, and at what is the minimum age wherein a parent can come to you asking for your suggestion on the assessment or the need for the assessment?
So we start working from infancy. So when I say milestones, so early years, the way of functioning is different, but we support parents how to monitor delays, and then how to intervene early, how to parent children, how to do more stimulation at home. So we work from anywhere infancy to later years. I limit ourselves to the college years, usually school years, but then some students till the college years also. But primarily we don't work with adults. We do work in the area of mental health, emotional intelligence, supporting them, their learning profiles, and also doing assessments for any kind of a learning disabilities or any kind of disabilities, which can lead them to get provisions from the boards, which could be CBSE, ICSE, or the international boards.
Understood. Because there are a lot of schools also who keep doing these kind of assessments, right? So these assessments are actually not helpful only for the kids who have some disabilities or some anxiety orders, but it can be helpful for the other kids also who want, whose parents are looking for a long term or a holistic growth.
Yeah, from the career perspective or the aptitude perspective. So psychometry is a very broad concept. We are building on it. So far we've been only working with children with delays or disabilities, but that's where we are working on to broaden that scope. Help children do their analysis from the perspective of like what you do in the later years for choosing leadership, executive skills. And we are also working on actually helping children to build some of these skills, which could be executive skills, managing their anxiety, how to manage their own, self. Social emotional learning is a new concept which is there. So what we are working on right now is to actually work in a group setup where children with a similar profile, whether it is they have executive functioning challenges or they are children with gifted intelligence, because children with gifted IQ also have a lot of social challenges. It is very different from the other, curve.
Yeah.
So working with them to how to be part of the community and not getting actually bullied by others, or not to bully others. So these are the aspects which we want to work in a group setups and work with children who don't have any cognitive delays but can build these skills.
Right. No, this was an interesting concept you just brought on the gifted kids, right? Kids with disabilities or with anxiety or some other ailments, people do talk about, but they don't talk about being gifted, right? And this is the concept which is now recently accepted by schools as well. So you are getting some kind of response from the schools or from the parents on how to do the how to channelize that kind of IQ or the energy which the kids have, right? Because it becomes much more challenging for the parents, because they need to be much more careful in the upbringing of the child, specifically a gifted one, because others don't understand as much. Kid with disabilities, maybe people understand and they have a soft corner, but a gifted child, he becomes outlier, and therefore he faces a lot more challenges which a kid with a normal IQ or a normal age would face. So tell us your experience, how it is accepted by the society today, as compared to it was.
So, as you said, outliers, actually, on the normal probability curve, if we see, there will be one side of the population which is on the lowest side and one is on the highest side. The lowest side, we still have become little aware, we have become more rights for the disability. But then there's the other side of the curve, which is gifted IQ, which many times is left, we are just building in our country. Very few schools would understand what gifted IQ is. If we modify curriculum for children who are in the lower side, we need to modify the same thing for the children who are on the higher side also. So the difference is that here we are doing differentiation at a higher level. So maybe a second grader might be doing a math at a fifth grade or a eighth grade level. So if I will make them sit with the second graders, it will also not meet their stimulation, and it will not meet their cognitive needs. So now in India, because we don't have gifted programs, we have developed SEN departments, which is children with special needs. Gifted programs is yet to be developed. Very, very few schools have programs for gifted children, but it is still work in progress. The knowledge about sensitization about children with disabilities is relatively much higher than sensitization about gifted kids.
Exactly. So a lot of work needs to be done.
Yes.
At that end as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So, Satinder, there's a lot of exposure of social media, right, on kids. And we just saw that Australia has recently launched that kids below 16 years of age, they cannot open or operate a social media account. But when we look at India, in India, any legislative change or bringing a law, it's a long drawn process. So tell us what can be done, until the law comes, and what we should be doing, as a society, as a group of schools, at a group of psychologists, advisors, as well as parents, to initiate that process, that there should be some law which prohibits kids, because it is important that you cannot stop kids, right, unless and until a society overall, it's very clear that this thing needs to be stopped. So what should be doing?
So, see, there is no straight answers for it. One, Australia is a smaller country relatively. I think, and also much more developed economy. I think my personal view on this is that I am not a big fan of social media. I think putting a restriction for social media is not a bad idea. I see kids as young as 7-8 years getting on social media, whereas I'm assuming Facebook and Instagram age requirement is 13, 14 or more than that, but they will give a fake IDs, and It's not happening that the children are doing, it is also being allowed to do that. So I don't know about the legislation, but I think rather than waiting only for law to come, it will be too late. I think what we definitely need to do is that anything which comes with pros and cons. So in last 15 years, smartphone has taken over our lives. So everything is run on applications now. So that is so much part of our life now that I don't think so I can undo that. It is part of my life as well. So what we definitely need to do is guidelines along with that. Waiting for a law to establish might be too late. I think a conversation, again, it comes a collaboration.
Yeah.
Like I see a lot of pediatricians now talking about it, and there are guidelines which were earlier given by American Academy of Pediatrics, and then Indian Academy of Pediatrics came with the guidelines. However, I don't see that it is getting disseminating a lot. Like polio got disseminated, like we eradicated that. So it requires much longer drive to achieve that, because the social media was created to create happiness among the world, but we've seen it has caused contrary to that, right? So children are getting bullied. You cannot even catch kids. There are some laws which came in the picture, which is POXO, which are getting prevalent and which are getting children reported. Personally believe kids are at an age where we need to teach them right behaviors,
Right.
and it should not always be bound by the law.
Right.
I think as we are teaching them curriculum, what are safe behaviors and what should be the category. So see, if in a school, if I'm taught that nobody will use social media until 14, 16 years old, then that will become a norm. But if I allow and the other one doesn't allow, then that comparison is going to come. So I think I started in the beginning saying that teachers are still getting trained, but I think parent community needs to get together and we need to establish certain parameters that it should not impact our children. I think this documentary which was in the news for quite some time, that where the child kills another classmate, that shows a extreme drastic outcomes of use of social media and how it impacts children's mind.
Yeah.
But I think rather than waiting for that long will be too late. So legislature will develop eventually. I think awareness in the community, coming with safe behaviors of using not only social media, I think internet specifically should be established.
Right. Coming to legislature, Satinder, there's RPWD Act in place, right? And you're focusing a lot on neurodiversity as well. So, from your perspective, what are the suggestions you would like to make for any change in the legislature or new guidelines that will help you spread the awareness of neurodiversity?
You touched upon a very, something which is very close to my heart. I think RPWD was a very, innovative in its way. It brought a lot of people with disability and their rights in a very good, movement, and it just was passed, and it is helping a lot of people with disabilities. However, the thing which I don't want a change in RPWD Act. I think that of course there will be always some things which can be revised and things. What I disagree is CBSE using RPWD as an act for providing services to children with disability. If we see other boards, the RPWD Act says that there should be 40% disability in order to get some kind of accommodations. So now getting a accommodation for a parking ticket or a railway reservation is very different for a child who has dysgraphia and to get a scribe in an exam. A lot of students who are having challenges with reading and writing, until and unless they have 40% disability, they are not entitled, because that is what CBSE has opted as RPWD as the criteria. I think educational diagnosis should be different from the legislature. A child should not be denied use of typewriter or a scribe if their handwriting is illegible, if they are not meeting 40% criteria. So that is my only suggestion. International boards, however, have defined in a standards course on psychometry, but CBSE just follows RPWD Act, so it causes a lot of challenge among parents who have children with learning disability, because learning disability is also now part of RPWD Act, which again I completely understands. But in order to prove that if you don't have 40% disability, you will not get simple things like extra time during exams, which are totally depending on the processing of a child, which cannot be measured on a disability level. So those are some of my reservations which may need certain more clarification, and I think people in the field should work together to get those aspects corrected.
So, Satinder, when we started off the conversation, you did mention, about how brilliant you were in school, right? And it's very, it's good to hear that, you were very clear on, from a very start that you want to develop yourself on child psychology, right? So this is very unique, I'll say. And you are an epitome of a woman who has built up or who has explored, building up the career for herself, right? Tell us something, or it'll be very helpful. What would be your advice to the woman?
So, first of all, I won't say I was brilliant. I was pretty okay, I would say. But thank you for the compliments you just said. These were very nice words. One thing, as I'm growing up, I'm just finding that how our society is not very conducive for women working. It is a lot of hardships that come along, because again, if you go family way, you have to take care of the family. Two aspects of it. One, I wanted to become a child psychologist. I did not have any exactly the path to follow. So one had to create one own path that was not very easy to do. Thing that required the most was vision, and I think persistence. The persistence and hard work does pay back. I really believe in it. So I wanted to become, I'm very passionate about working with children and making a difference in child's life. That helped me to work hard and stay on my primary area. I've left a lot of jobs in the process. I've taken up projects, left them, I've done a lot. Coming back to only my own forte, because there I can work with my own passion, and passion drives the business rather than the business driving the passion, if I
Right.
have to put it
Yes.
that way.
Correct.
And that is not an easy path to take. It is tough, because you have to manage resources, you have to work much harder, there are many roadblocks which you have to kind of. I looked at your podcast where Neha said that what advice she wants to give is become aggressive.
Yeah.
I really take that with the heart now, because I think what happens is that there is a lot of, as a temperament, it's easy to give up, because you just think ki nahi ho payega, because that's what the world is telling you, ki you have ideas but it may not work. But I think if you work hard and you keep building your own skills as a person, one thing, a few years back, I think I saw the book where a lot of women were given Lean In as a Women's Day thing to read. I got very fascinated and I read the book, and I was like tick marking, okay, this is what I did, this is what I did. One thing which I really liked about that was that she said that, even if you're not earning money, invest, hire help for yourself, but do not leave what you're doing.
Right.
I think that really is paying me back, because initially, as it was tough with a kid growing up, raising a kid and meeting their needs, because as a woman, it is expected that if a kid is not well, that, you'll take off, or there are a lot of roles which you also want to volunteer and be part of it.
Right.
So, but I continued that journey, and now when my kid is grown up, I feel very good that I moved on, although it was tough. And this is what I tell all the women around me, that even if it is tough, don't leave the career. So I think staying persistent, doing hard work, and if you're passionate about something, don't leave it. It will eventually pay you back.
Right, right. I think when a kid is born, a lot of our dedication goes towards the kid and to ourselves. So I think that's a wonderful piece of advice. Don't leave your career. take a break maybe, but think about yourself as well.
Yes.
Right, because if you are thinking about yourself, then a better outcome would be in terms of the quality of, you know, environment you're creating, and therefore will be helpful for everybody.
More than think about yourself, I think, why do I have to restrict my role only as a homemaker and
Yeah,
as a parent? If this is what you had pursued, you wanted to do, I think there is nothing wrong in it. But if you have ambitions, and I think that's not good enough to only restrict your life to that
yeah,
role, because I
correct,
think we have different roles. And
correct,
once you've, that's where you see empty nest women are very difficult to deal with that, because you need to have something planned for yourself, because cognitive stimulation is also required. It's not only meeting the needs, it is also being meaningful in life, I guess.
correct, correct. Have that independence that you are able to make a choice for yourself, whatever that
Absolutely,
choice be.
absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you, Satinder, for such wonderful words. It was wonderful speaking with you. A lot of awareness, I think, is required from a neurodiversity standpoint, and a lot of changes which you mentioned are required from a legislature point of view as well. It will take little time, of course, but if people like you and we come together and start that initiative, I think it's the right time that should be done. So, thank you so much, Satinder, for coming to the podcast for sharing your views.
Thank you so much for having me. And I think this is what I loved about your initiative, was women supporting each other. I think that's what we need to do. We need to share hands, share our challenges, and let more and more women and empower them. So thank you for having me, and such a kind words.
Thank you.